Son, are you okay? Sylvia Lawson reached toward the soldier's shoulder. Get your filthy black hands off him! A white woman in a Mercedes, face twisted with disgust. Trying to rob a soldier? In this neighborhood? Her husband sneered. Typical. These people see a uniform and think it's payday. Live streaming this, a teenager laughed, phone in Sylvia's face. Homeless black lady harasses veteran. Disgusting welfare case, another spat. The soldier hadn't moved. Rain poured down his face like tears he'd forgotten how to cry. Sylvia stood alone. A black woman with a broken umbrella, $20 in her pocket, her last 20 until Friday, surrounded by phones and sneers. She gave him that $20 anyway. None of them knew who that soldier really was. None of them knew that the next morning, a knock on Sylvia's door would make her collapse to her knees. And everyone laughing tonight would wish they had kept their mouths shut. The rain had soaked through her coat by the time she sat down next to him. I don't need your money, the soldier whispered. His voice cracked like dry wood. I don't need anything. Then why you sitting here like you waiting to disappear? He finally looked at her. Young, maybe 24, blue eyes red from crying, or not sleeping, or both. His dress uniform, pristine once, now hung on him like a surrender flag. My grandmother's dying, he said. They won't let me see her. Sylvia felt something twist in her chest. Who won't let you? The army. Said my leave request was denied. Said I'm needed on base. His laugh was hollow. Needed. Like I'm not just a number to them. Where's your grandmother? Virginia. 3 hours away. Might as well be the moon. Sylvia looked at the crumpled 20 in her hand. She thought about her electric bill, 2 months overdue. She thought about the bread she needed, the eggs, the rice that would stretch until Friday. She thought about her husband, Jerome, who died 8 years ago in a VA hospital while she held his hand. A soldier, too. A man who came home from his second deployment with that same look in his eyes. The look of someone fighting a war nobody else could see. What's your name, son? Daniel. Daniel Ashford. She pressed the 20 into his cold palm. Whatever it is, Daniel, it ain't worth dying in the rain for. He stared at the bill like she'd handed him a miracle. I can't take this. You ain't taking. I'm giving. There's a difference. But why? You don't even know me. Sylvia pulled her broken umbrella closer, trying to shield them both. It barely worked. I know enough. I know you're somebody's grandson. I know you're hurting. And I know that when my husband came home from the war with that same look you got, I wished somebody, anybody, had sat with him in the rain. Daniel's composure crumbled. Tears mixed with rainwater. She raised me. My grandmother. My mom died when I was 12. My dad's a drunk who hasn't spoken to me in years. She's all I have, and I can't even... His voice broke completely. Sylvia didn't say anything, just sat there. Let him cry. Let the rain fall. Let the world keep spinning around two strangers on a bench who had nothing in common except the weight they carried. What's her name? Sylvia asked softly. Your grandmother. Daniel hesitated. You wouldn't know her. She lives in Virginia. Try me. But he shook his head. It doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. A bus pulled up. Daniel's bus. He stood slowly, still clutching the 20. I'll pay you back, he said. I promise. You don't owe me nothing. Yes, I do. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. Thank you, Mrs. Lawson. Sylvia Lawson. Thank you, Mrs. Lawson, for seeing me. He climbed onto the bus. The doors closed, and Sylvia watched him go, wondering if she'd just given her grocery money to a ghost. She got home at 9:30. Her apartment was cold. She'd turned off the heat to save money. The fridge held half a jar of peanut butter and some expired yogurt. On the counter, 3 utility bills screamed in red letters. Final notice. She counted her remaining money. $3.52 in coins. Her phone buzzed. Tamika. "Hey, Mama. Just checking in." "Hey, baby." Sylvia's voice was steady. She'd learned long ago how to hide hunger. "How's Atlanta?" "Busy. Double shifts all week. You okay? You sound tired." "Just a long day. Nothing new." "Did you eat?" Sylvia looked at the empty kitchen. "Of course I ate." The lie came easy. It always did. "Oh, Mama, did you see the news? That judge, Ashford Calloway, they're saying she's sick. Pancreatic cancer. They showed her picture. She looks so frail now. Remember when she sent that senator to prison? Daddy used to say she was the only judge in America who actually scared the powerful." Sylvia half listened, making instant coffee with tap water. "That's sad. She seemed like a tough lady." "The toughest. Anyway, I gotta go. Love you, Mama." "Love you too, baby." She hung up, stared at Jerome's photo on the wall, his army uniform, his steady eyes. "I gave away our grocery money," she whispered to him. "To a soldier. You would have done the same, wouldn't you?" Jerome didn't answer. He never did anymore, but somehow she felt like he approved. 5:30 came too early. Sylvia's alarm screamed into the darkness. Her body screamed back. 52 years of scrubbing floors, washing windows, folding other people's laundry. It lived in her joints now, a permanent tenant that paid rent in pain. She made instant coffee, no milk, no sugar. Both cost money she didn't have. The morning news played on her cracked phone screen while she dressed. A familiar face appeared, steel gray hair, sharp eyes, oxygen tubes visible now. Federal Judge Margaret Ashford Calloway, known as the Iron Gavel, continues to battle pancreatic cancer. Sources say the 81-year-old has refused to step down from the bench despite her declining health. Something about those eyes, something familiar. Sylvia stared at the photo, frowning, then shook it off. Rich people all looked the same to her. She grabbed her coat, still damp from last night. Checked her purse, bus pass, keys, the $3.52 in coins that would have to last until Friday. Her hand touched the doorknob. And then she heard it. Engines. Multiple engines. The deep rumble of vehicles that cost more than her apartment building. She looked through the peephole. 3 black SUVs had pulled up outside. Government plates, tinted windows, men in suits stepping out, checking phones, scanning the building. Sylvia's heart stopped. Eviction. Police. ICE. What? Her mind raced through every possibility, each worse than the last. She hadn't done anything wrong. Had she? The utility bills. Were they coming after her for those? Could they arrest you for being poor now? A knock. Firm. Official. The kind of knock that changes lives. She opened the door, chain still on. A white man in a suit that cost more than her yearly salary. Distinguished. Professional. Cold. "Mrs. Lawson? Mrs. Sylvia Lawson?" "Who's asking?" "My name is Gerald Whitmore. I'm the personal attorney to Judge Margaret Ashford Calloway." Sylvia frowned. "I don't know any—" And then it hit her. Ashford. The soldier's last name. She'd asked him. He'd told her. Daniel Ashford. Ashford Calloway. The judge on the news. The one Tamika mentioned. The woman with the sharp eyes. The grandmother who was dying. Sylvia's voice came out as a whisper. The boy. The soldier. In the rain. Whitmore nodded slowly. Her grandson. Daniel. The hallway tilted, the walls blurred. Sylvia grabbed the doorframe, but her knees buckled. Her legs gave out completely. She slid down, back against the wall, until she was sitting on the floor. Her purse fell, coins scattered across the linoleum. The broken umbrella from last night rolled toward Whitmore's polished shoes. She couldn't breathe. "I gave him $20, she gasped. "That was Judge Ashford Calloway's grandson? The most powerful judge in... I sat with him in the rain. I gave him my last." Her mind exploded with fragments. The iron gavel. The woman who sent senators to prison. Her grandson was crying at a bus stop, and I gave him $20 like he was nobody. Because he was nobody to me. Just a boy who needed help. She started laughing, then crying, then both at once. Hysterical. Uncontrollable. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God!" Whitmore knelt beside her, genuine concern on his face. "Mrs. Lawson, are you all right? Can I get you some water?" "I'm fine. I just..." She wiped her face with shaking hands. "What does she want?" "The judge, what does she want with me?" "She wants to thank you. In person. Today." "Thank me? For what?" "I just gave him $20. Whitmore's expression softened. "Mrs. Lawson, you gave him more than that. You gave him a reason to keep going. The judge believes you saved her grandson's life." Sylvia stared at him. The words didn't make sense. Nothing made sense. "I have to be at work by 8. I've already spoken with Mrs. Pemberton. You're excused for the day. With pay." Another wave of shock. These people had made one phone call and rearranged her entire life. "Just give me a minute." She stumbled back into her apartment, closed the door, leaned against it. Jerome's photo watched her from the wall. His army uniform, his steady eyes. "Baby," she whispered, voice cracking. "You're not going to believe what just happened." She splashed water on her face, looked at herself in the cracked mirror. A 52-year-old black woman with tired eyes and rough hands and 3.52 to her name. About to meet one of the most powerful women in America. "Lord," she breathed, "what have I gotten myself into?" The leather seats were softer than her bed. Sylvia sat rigid in the back of the SUV, afraid to touch anything, afraid to breathe too deeply. The car smelled like money, that particular scent of luxury that poor people recognized instantly and never forgot. Through the tinted windows, she watched her world disappear. Row houses with sagging porches gave way to strip malls. Strip malls gave way to gated communities. Gated communities gave way to horse farms with white fences that stretched for miles. Then came the estates. Mansions set so far back from the road that you could only glimpse them through trees. Properties measured not in square feet, but in acres. Wealth so vast it needed its own zip code. "The Ashford estate has been in the family for 4 generations, Whitmore said, breaking the silence. 43 years since Judge Ashford Calloway moved in as a young bride." Sylvia thought about her apartment, the water stain on the ceiling that had been spreading for 3 years, the mice she couldn't get rid of, the neighbors who played music at 2 a.m. because nobody cared enough to complain. "How did you find me?" she asked. "The judge is very thorough. Daniel told her what happened. She had investigators locate you within hours." "Investigators?" Sylvia shook her head. "I gave a boy $20, and suddenly I got investigators looking into me." "You saved her grandson, Mrs. Lawson. She doesn't take that lightly." "Saved him? I just sat with him in the rain." Whitmore's expression flickered, something unreadable. That may have been exactly what he needed. Before Sylvia could ask what that meant, the SUV turned. Iron gates, security cameras, a guard who waved them through without even checking. Then the house appeared. Sylvia's breath caught. She had cleaned mansions for 27 years, big houses, fancy houses, houses with pools and tennis courts and wine cellars. She knew wealth, but this was something else. This was a Georgian palace. 3 stories of red brick and white columns, windows that reflected the gray sky like mirrors, a circular driveway with a fountain that probably cost more than every paycheck she'd ever earned combined. "This is where she lives?" Sylvia whispered. "For 43 years. The car stopped at the front entrance. A butler in a tailored uniform opened her door. Sylvia didn't move. "Ma'am," the butler said politely, "may I help you out? I usually go through the back." The words came out before she could stop them. 27 years of service entrances, of being invisible, of knowing her place. But Whitmore appeared beside her. "Not today, Mrs. Lawson. Today you're a guest." She stepped out onto gravel that crunched expensively underfoot, climbed marble steps that had never known a crack or stain, walked through a front door that was opened for her, not by her. Inside, the entrance hall stretched toward a ceiling painted with angels. Oil portraits lined the walls, generations of Ashfords looking down at her with eyes that matched Daniel's. Antique furniture, crystal chandeliers, books everywhere, leather-bound and ancient and untouched. A housekeeper approached, white, elderly, trembling slightly. "Mrs. Lawson, the judge is waiting in the library. May I bring you tea?" Sylvia almost laughed, almost cried. A white woman in a mansion was offering her tea. "That would be nice," she managed. The housekeeper leaned closer, whispered, "She hasn't smiled in weeks, but when she heard about you, she smiled." Then she straightened and gestured down the hall. "This way, please. The judge is expecting you." Sylvia followed, walking through rooms that cost more than her life, toward a woman who controlled more power than she could imagine, with absolutely no idea what waited on the other side. The library smelled like old books and dying fire. Floor-to-ceiling shelves lined every wall. Thousands of volumes in leather and gold, the accumulated wisdom of a family that had never needed to sell anything. A fireplace crackled weakly, fighting the permanent chill that expensive homes always seem to have. And in a wing-back chair by the window, oxygen tubes in her nose, sat Judge Margaret Ashford Calloway. 81 years old, steel-gray hair pulled back severely, a face that had sentenced murderers and destroyed senators and never once flinched. But it was her eyes that stopped Sylvia cold. Sharp. Fierce. Alive with an intelligence that the cancer clearly hadn't touched. The same eyes she'd seen in the rain last night. Daniel's eyes. "Leave us," Margaret said to Whitmore. Her voice was weaker than Sylvia expected, but commanded obedience regardless. The door closed. Just 2 women now. The fire crackling. Rain still falling against the windows. "Sit down, Mrs. Lawson." Sylvia sat, perched on the edge of a chair that probably belonged in a museum, her rough hands folded in her lap, hiding the calluses and cracks from 27 years of labor. Margaret studied her like she was reading a case file. A minute passed, then another. Finally, "You gave my grandson $20. "Yes, ma'am." "That was your last money until Friday. I know your financial situation, your debts, your income, your daughter's student loans. You couldn't afford that kindness." Sylvia stiffened. The invasion of privacy should have angered her. Instead, it just felt tired. Rich people always thought they had a right to know everything about everyone. "Ma'am, with respect, I can't afford not to be kind. That's the only thing I got that nobody can take from me." She paused, then added, "Can't repossess kindness. Can't foreclose on compassion." Margaret stared at her, and then, slowly, impossibly, the iron gavel cracked. Tears rolled down the old woman's face. Silent, unstoppable. The kind of tears that came from somewhere so deep they'd been locked away for years. "I've sat on the federal bench for 38 years, Margaret whispered. I've sentenced murderers. I've brought down corrupt senators. They call me the Iron Gavel because I never let emotion affect my judgment." She took a shuddering breath. "But I couldn't save my own grandson." "Ma'am, his father, my son, is a drunk who hasn't spoken to him in years. His mother died when he was 12. I raised that boy. I gave him everything I could: education, opportunity, love." Margaret's voice broke, and when he needed help most, he didn't come to me. He sat in the rain at a bus stop alone, thinking about ending his life. And a stranger, a woman with nothing, gave him something I couldn't. Sylvia's heart clenched. "What did I give him that you couldn't?" "Simple human kindness, without judgment, without expectation, without needing to know who he was or what he could do for you." Margaret reached out and took Sylvia's hand. Her grip was weak but desperate. "You saw my grandson when his own blood couldn't see him." Sylvia was crying now too. She hadn't meant to. It just happened. "He's a good boy," she said softly. "I could tell. He just needed someone to sit with him." That's exactly what he needed, and I was too busy being powerful to notice. They sat in silence for a moment. Two women from opposite ends of the world, connected by a boy in the rain. Then Margaret composed herself, wiped her face, became the judge again. "There's more you need to know. Daniel didn't just run away because he was sad." Sylvia frowned. "What do you mean?" "He's a military intelligence analyst. 3 weeks ago, he discovered evidence of massive corruption, defense contracts being manipulated, millions of dollars in kickbacks being funneled to private accounts." Corruption? In the military? The man behind it is Congressman Victor Hamill. He has allies everywhere: military brass, Pentagon officials, media contacts. When Daniel tried to report what he found, they didn't thank him. They tried to destroy him. Margaret's eyes hardened with familiar fury. They fabricated misconduct charges, denied his leave requests, isolated him from everyone who could help. They were going to arrest him on false charges, court-martial him as a deserter and a traitor. So he ran. He ran to me, but he never made it. My phones were being monitored. My staff intercepted his messages for my protection. Her voice dripped with bitter irony. I didn't know he was trying to reach me until 2 days ago. By then he was at the bus stop. By then he was ready to give up. Sylvia thought about Daniel's eyes, that hollow look, the way he sat in the rain like he was waiting to disappear. "What do you need from me?" she asked. Margaret leaned forward. "I'm dying, Mrs. Lawson. Pancreatic cancer. 3 months, perhaps less. I can fight for Daniel legally. I still have powerful friends, but Hamill controls the narrative. If I appear publicly, they'll claim I'm senile, that I'm using my position to protect a deserter. So you need someone they can't attack. You're a working woman who gave a stranger her last $20. Your story is unimpeachable. I want you to testify, not in court, but publicly, about who Daniel really is." Sylvia's hands were shaking. "Ma'am, I clean houses. Nobody listens to people like me." "That's exactly why they'll listen." Margaret's eyes blazed. "Because you have something Congressman Hamill will never understand." "What's that?" Margaret smiled, thin, fierce, proud. "Kindness isn't charity, Mrs. Lawson. It's the only justice that never fails." The words hung in the air, a slogan, a battle cry, a promise. "Will you help me save my grandson?" Sylvia thought about the people at the bus stop, the phones in her face, the sneers, the contempt. She thought about Jerome, who served his country for 22 years and died in a VA hospital waiting for benefits that never came. She thought about every time she'd been told she was nothing, nobody, invisible. "I'll help," she said. But I got one condition. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Name it. You mentioned compensation, paying my debts, my daughter's loans. Of course, whatever you need. No. Sylvia stood. I didn't help Daniel for money. If I take payment now, everything I do next is tainted. People will say you bought me. Margaret stared at her, speechless. If I speak for your grandson, it's because it's right, not because I'm on your payroll. A long silence. Then Margaret laughed, a real laugh, rusty from disuse but genuine. In 38 years on the bench, I've seen thousands of witnesses, politicians, executives, experts, celebrities. She shook her head in wonder. I have never met anyone like you. Sylvia smiled. We've always been here, Judge. You just have to look in bus stops during rainstorms. They found Daniel in the guest house. He looked worse than last night, thinner somehow, as if fear had been eating him from the inside. But when he saw Sylvia, his face transformed. Mrs. Lawson? He stood at attention, military instinct overriding exhaustion. What are you? How did you? Boy, sit down before you fall down. Sylvia walked toward him, arms already opening. And stop calling me ma'am. He laughed, a broken, relieved sound. Yes, Ma. Yes. She hugged him, the way she used to hug her nephews, the way she wished someone had hugged Jerome when he came home from war with ghosts in his eyes. Thank you, Daniel whispered into her shoulder. You're the first person in months who looked at me like a human being, not a problem to solve. You ain't a problem, baby. You're somebody's grandson. You're somebody's soldier. You're somebody who needed help. She pulled back, held his face in her rough hands. Now, I need you to tell me something. And I need you to tell me true. Daniel swallowed. Anything. At that bus stop, before I came over. Her voice was gentle but firm. What were you thinking about? His face crumbled. He couldn't answer. Didn't have to. That's not an option anymore, Sylvia said fiercely. You hear me? Whatever happens next, that's not an option. Your grandmother needs you. The truth needs you. And I didn't give up my grocery money just to watch you give up. Daniel's tears came freely now. I was so tired. So alone. Everyone who was supposed to help me either couldn't or wouldn't. I know, baby. I know. And then you sat down, in the rain, and you didn't ask anything. Didn't want anything, you just stayed. That's what we do. People like us. She smiled. We stay. From the doorway, Margaret watched in silence. Tears streamed down her face. The second time she'd cried today after years of refusing to. Whitmore appeared beside her. The journalist is confirmed, he said quietly. Rebecca Collins. She's ready when we are. Margaret nodded, eyes still fixed on Sylvia and Daniel. We're going to war, she said softly. And that woman is going to lead the charge. She's remarkable. No. Margaret shook her head. She's something better than remarkable. She's good. The interview was supposed to change everything. 3 days later, Sylvia sat in a secure hotel conference room in Washington, D.C., wearing her best dress, navy blue, the one she saved for church and funerals. Across from her, Rebecca Collins, veteran investigative journalist, leaned forward with genuine interest. Mrs. Lawson, tell me about that night at the bus stop. Sylvia told her story. The rain, the soldier, the $20. She didn't embellish, didn't dramatize, just told it plain, the way she'd tell it to a neighbor over coffee. Why did you stop? Rebecca asked. Most people would have walked by. My husband was a soldier, Jerome. He died 8 years ago. I know what it looks like when someone in uniform is fighting a battle nobody else can see. Sylvia paused. I stopped because I'd want someone to stop for him. Rebecca's eyes were wet when the interview ended. This will air in 48 hours. Mrs. Lawson, you may have just changed a young man's life. But as Sylvia left the hotel, she noticed a man in the lobby watching her. Dark suit, cold eyes. When she met his gaze, he looked away. Too quick. Too practiced. She knew that look, too. The look of someone being paid to pay attention. The next morning, her neighborhood had transformed into a war zone. Strangers on her block. Unmarked cars. People with cameras who definitely weren't tourists. Mrs. Lawson, is it true you have a criminal record? Mrs. Lawson, are you being paid by the Ashford family? Mrs. Lawson, any comment on the fraud allegations? She pushed through them, heart pounding. Inside her building, Mrs. Patterson was waiting. 70 years old, been her neighbor for a decade. Sylvia, people have been here all morning. Official looking, they went through your mailbox. Went through my... Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. A link. She clicked it and felt the floor drop away. Soldier's savior has history of fraud. The article claimed she'd been arrested for check fraud in 1998. A lie. That she owed money to loan sharks. A lie. That she'd abandoned her daughter when Tamika moved to Atlanta. A twisted, vicious lie. Her phone rang. The landlord. Mrs. Lawson, I've received complaints. Health code violations. You have 30 days to vacate. Violations? I've lived here 11 years. There are no... I'm sorry, it's out of my hands. He hung up. Sylvia stood in her kitchen, watching her life collapse around her. The lies spreading. The eviction notice coming. Her name being dragged through mud she'd never touched. Her phone buzzed again. Tamika. Mama? Her daughter's voice was panicked. Someone called my hospital. They're asking questions about my nursing license. They're saying I falsified patient records. Baby. That's my career, Mama. What's happening? Sylvia closed her eyes. They're fighting back. Who? Who's doing this? The people who want Daniel to disappear. That night, the knock came at 11. Soft. Polite. The knock of someone who knew they held all the power. Sylvia opened the door with the chain on. A white man stood in her hallway. 60s. Silver hair. Expensive coat that cost more than everything she owned combined. Behind him, 2 aides with smiles that didn't reach their eyes. Mrs. Lawson. His voice was smooth as silk and just as slippery. I apologize for the late hour. I'm Congressman Victor Hamill. Her blood went cold. May I come in? No. His smile didn't flicker. Fair enough. I'll be brief. He stepped closer to the door chain. Close enough that she could smell his cologne. Close enough that she could see the calculation in his eyes. I'm here to offer you a way out. $500,000. Cash, tax-free. Sylvia's hands trembled. That was more money than she'd seen in her entire life. All you have to do is tell the truth, Hamill continued. That the Ashford family paid you to lie. That Daniel was never in danger. That you made the whole thing up for money. That is a lie. That's a matter of perspective. His smile widened. The point is, you take the money, all of this goes away. The articles disappear. Your landlord changes his mind. Your daughter's nursing license stays intact. And if I don't? The smile vanished. Beneath the polished exterior, something ugly emerged. Mrs. Lawson, I have friends everywhere. Police departments, federal agencies, media companies, courts. He leaned in. I can make your life a living hell. I can make sure your daughter never works in medicine again. I can find irregularities in your tax returns, your employment history, your entire existence." He paused, letting the threat sink in. "You're a cleaning lady from Baltimore. You have nothing. No power. No connections. No money. In a week, no one will remember your name." His eyes glittered with contempt. "Make the smart choice." Sylvia looked at him. This man who thought he could buy her silence. This man who thought poverty meant weakness. This man who thought she had nothing to lose. He was wrong. She had her word. She had her husband's memory. She had 27 years of being underestimated by people exactly like him. She unchained the door, opened it fully, looked him dead in the eye. "Congressman, my husband served this country for 22 years. He taught me that there are some things you don't sell, not for any price." Hamill's face tightened. "You can take my apartment. You can take my reputation. You can take everything I have. But you can't take my word. And my word is that Daniel Ashford is an innocent man, and you're trying to destroy him because he caught you stealing." She stepped closer, close enough to see the shock in his eyes. "Now get out of my hallway before I call the police." For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Hamill's mask slipped completely. Pure hatred. Pure fury. "You'll regret this," he hissed. "Maybe. But I'll sleep tonight. Can you say the same?" He turned and walked away. His aides followed. The elevator dinged. They were gone. Sylvia closed the door, locked it, and collapsed against it, sliding to the floor exactly like she had when Whitmore told her about Daniel. But this time, she wasn't collapsing from shock. She was collapsing from the weight of what she'd just done. Alone in her dark apartment with enemies circling and everything falling apart, Sylvia Lawson sat on her floor and shook. She was terrified, but she was still standing, and that was enough. Dawn came slowly, gray light seeping through windows Sylvia hadn't slept near. She'd sat in the corner all night, watching the door, waiting for them to come back. They didn't, but she knew they would. Men like Hamill didn't accept no. They just found new ways to make you say yes. Her phone rang at 6. Tamika. "Mama." Her daughter's voice was different now, harder, angrier. "I quit my job." "Baby, no. Your career. My career is nothing if I let them use it to hurt you. I already talked to a lawyer friend. I'm coming home." "Tamika, you didn't raise me to run from bullies, Mama. You raised me to stand up. So that's what I'm doing." Sylvia felt tears coming again. Seemed like all she did lately was cry. "Your daddy would be proud of you." "He'd be proud of you, Mama. Now let's go take these people down." The church basement smelled like old hymnals and fresh coffee. Whitmore had arranged the meeting in secret, a place Hamill's people would never think to look. When Sylvia arrived, 3 strangers were already waiting. A white man, 50s, weathered face. A Latina woman, 40s, professional dress that had seen better days. An Asian American man in his 30s, military bearing, haunted eyes. "Mrs. Lawson," Whitmore said, "meet Harold Morrison, Elena Vega, and Captain James Wheeler. All of them have been destroyed by Congressman Hamill." Harold spoke first. "I'm a veteran, 30 years of service. When I filed a complaint about contract fraud on my base, they canceled my disability benefits. I lost my house." Elena was next. "Government contractor. I refused to sign off on falsified invoices. They blacklisted me from federal work. I haven't had a real job in 2 years. James's voice was barely a whisper. "Army captain. I reported Hamill's corruption through proper channels. They gave me a dishonorable discharge on fabricated charges. My wife left me. I haven't seen my kids in 2 years. Sylvia looked at them. 3 people broken by the same monster. 3 lives shattered for telling the truth. "Why are you telling me this?" Harold laughed bitterly. "Because we were cowards. We all took money or threats and stayed quiet. And it didn't matter. He still ruined us." "But you said no," Elena added. You looked him in the eye and said no. That makes you the bravest person we've ever met, James said, and maybe the only one who can stop him. Sylvia's heart was pounding. What are you asking? Testify together, Whitmore said. All four of you, at the same time. They'll destroy us, Harold said. All of us. Sylvia stood, looked at each of them. They're already destroying us. Hamill's got his foot on all our necks. The only question is whether we die quiet or we die loud. She paused. I don't know about y'all, but I'd rather go down swinging. Silence. Then Elena nodded. I'm in. James. Me too. Harold, slowly. One more fight. All right. One more fight. The evidence room at the estate was filled with paper trails and digital ghosts. Rebecca Collins had been working around the clock, piecing together the full picture of Hamill's corruption. She spread documents across the table like a general planning an invasion. Bank transfers totaling $4.8 million, all traced to Hamill's offshore accounts. Internal memos ordering Harold's benefits terminated. Emails from Hamill's office explicitly threatening Elena. Fabricated misconduct reports in James's military file with dates that don't match reality. She looked up, eyes gleaming. And the crown jewel. She pressed play on a recording. Hamill's voice filled the room. You're a cleaning lady from Baltimore. You have nothing, no power, no connections, no money. In a week, no one will remember your name. Sylvia's jaw dropped. How did you... You were wearing a wire. Whitmore smiled slightly. Margaret's idea. She thought Hamill might visit. I didn't know. That was the point. Your reaction had to be genuine. Rebecca gathered the evidence. This is the most comprehensive corruption case I've seen in 20 years. When this drops, Hamill is finished. When? Sylvia asked. Tomorrow. Live press conference. National Press Club. Rebecca looked at her. You'll speak first. Tell your story. Then we release everything. Sylvia looked around the room. A journalist, a lawyer, 3 broken survivors, 1 dying judge, 1 hunted soldier, against one of the most powerful men in Washington. Let's go get him, she said. The morning of the press conference, Sylvia woke at 5. She'd barely slept. Again. But this time it wasn't fear keeping her awake. It was something else. Something that felt almost like purpose. She stood before the mirror in the safe house Margaret had arranged, put on her navy blue dress, the same one from every important moment of this journey, smoothed the fabric with hands that still showed every year of scrubbing floors. Then she added something new, Jerome's dog tags, hidden under her collar, cold against her chest. I'm bringing you with me today, she whispered. You always said a soldier never fights alone. Tamika knocked. Mama, car's here. They held each other in the hallway, mother and daughter, survivor and survivor. You ready? No, Sylvia admitted, but I'm going anyway. The National Press Club was chaos organized into rows, cameras, microphones, journalists from every major outlet crammed into a room designed for half as many. In the back, Sylvia spotted men in expensive suits, Hamill's lawyers, she guessed, watching, waiting, ready to pounce on any mistake. But in the front row sat Daniel, in civilian clothes, looking healthier than she'd ever seen him. Beside him, Tamika. Beside her, Harold, Elena, and James. Her people, her army. Rebecca Collins touched her shoulder. Whenever you're ready, Mrs. Lawson. Sylvia walked to the podium. The room fell silent. 100 cameras pointed at her face. 100 microphones waited for her words. 100 people who had never cleaned a toilet in their lives, waiting to hear what a maid from Baltimore had to say. She gripped the podium edges, found Daniel's eyes, found Tamika's, breathed, and began. My name is Sylvia Lawson. I'm 52 years old. I live in Baltimore. I clean houses for a living. I've done that for 27 years. Her voice was steady, stronger than she expected. 3 weeks ago, I was waiting for the bus in the rain. I had $20 in my pocket, my last money until payday, and I saw a young soldier sitting alone on a bench. She paused. He'd been there for an hour, soaking wet, not moving. I know that look. My husband was a soldier. He came home from his second deployment with that same look, like he was fighting a war nobody else could see. So I walked over. I sat down. I gave him my $20. She looked directly into the cameras. He told me his grandmother was dying and the military wouldn't let him see her. I didn't know who his grandmother was. I didn't care. I just saw a boy who needed help. That boy was Daniel Ashford. His grandmother is Judge Margaret Ashford Calloway. Murmurs rippled through the room. I found out the next morning when 3 black SUVs showed up at my apartment. I collapsed right there in my doorway. Couldn't believe it. She took a breath. But here's what I've learned since then. Daniel wasn't just sad. He was being hunted. He discovered that a powerful man was stealing millions from the American military. When he tried to report it, they destroyed his life. Her voice rose. They called him a deserter. They denied his leave. They pushed him to the edge. And when I tried to help tell his story, they came for me too. They wrote lies about me in the papers. They're evicting me from my apartment. They threatened my daughter's career. A congressman came to my door at midnight and offered me $500,000 to lie. She let that sink in. I said no. Because some things aren't for sale. I'm nobody important. I clean houses, I take the bus, I clip coupons. But I know the difference between right and wrong. She found Hamill's lawyers in the back, looked right at them. And what they're doing to Daniel Ashford is wrong. You want to know who this young man really is? He's the kind of person who'd rather lose everything than betray his country. Her voice dropped to steel. And some of you in this room are the kind of people who'd betray your country to gain everything. Absolute silence. Then, from the back, someone started clapping, then another. Then the whole room erupted. Sylvia stepped back from the podium, shaking, tears streaming down her face. Tamika rushed forward, wrapped her in her arms. Daniel was crying. Even Whitmore was wiping his eyes. But it wasn't over. Rebecca Collins took the podium, face grim with professional determination. What Mrs. Lawson just told you is the human story. Now let me show you the evidence. Screens lit up behind her, bank statements, emails, military documents with dates that didn't add up, the paper trail of $4.8 million flowing from defense contractors into offshore accounts. Daniel testified next, explaining exactly what he found, how he reported it, how they tried to silence him. Then Harold, Elena, and James. Video testimonies from all three. Their faces finally public. Their stories finally heard. And finally, the crown jewel. Rebecca pressed play. Hamill's voice filled the room, crystal clear. You're a cleaning lady from Baltimore. You have nothing, no power, no connections, no money. In a week, no one will remember your name. Gasps, murmurs. Someone in the back cursed loudly. Rebecca looked at Sylvia. Congressman Hamill said no one would remember Mrs. Lawson's name. I think he was wrong. She stepped aside. Mrs. Lawson, would you like to respond? Sylvia returned to the podium. Tear-streaked but standing tall, a cleaning lady from Baltimore who had just brought down a congressman. She looked directly into the camera, directly at Hamill, wherever he was watching, and smiled. Turns out, Congressman, some people will. The aftermath was swift and brutal for Hamill. Within 24 hours, the Department of Justice opened a criminal investigation. Within 48 hours, the Pentagon suspended Daniel's AWOL status and announced a full review of his case. Within 72 hours, Congressman Victor Hamill resigned from Congress. Criminal charges were expected within the month. Harold Morrison's disability benefits were reinstated with back pay. Elena Vega received calls from 3 federal agencies offering her contracts. Captain James Wheeler's dishonorable discharge was overturned pending review. Sylvia's eviction disappeared. Her landlord suddenly discovered that the violations were clerical errors. The articles vanished from the internet. Tamika's nursing license investigation was closed with no findings. And in a hospital bed at the Ashford estate, Judge Margaret Ashford Calloway watched the news with oxygen tubes in her nose and tears on her cheeks. "She did it," she whispered to Whitmore. "That magnificent woman did it." "She's remarkable," Whitmore agreed. Margaret shook her head. "No, she's something better than remarkable." She smiled, the first real smile in months. "She's good." 2 weeks later, Sylvia visited Margaret for the last time. The cancer had advanced. The judge was smaller now, frailer, propped up on pillows in her hospital bed. But her eyes were peaceful in a way they hadn't been before. Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand. Sylvia entered with daisies. Not roses, not lilies, just simple daisies from Mrs. Patterson's garden. "The expensive kind don't last any longer," she said. "These are from a friend." Margaret laughed. It was weak, but real. "Sit with me, Sylvia." First names now. After everything, formality seemed ridiculous. "I spent 40 years sending people to prison," Margaret said. "I thought that was justice, punishment for the wicked. Balance restored." She shook her head. "But you taught me something different. Real justice isn't about punishment. It's about protection. Protecting the people who can't protect themselves." "You protected Daniel," Sylvia said. "We protected each other." Daniel cleared his throat. "I've been offered a position. There's a nonprofit that defends military whistleblowers, helps people like me who try to do the right thing and get crushed for it. They want me to run their advocacy department." Margaret squeezed his hand. "Use it well. Make it mean something." "I will, Grandma, I promise." She turned to Sylvia. "Now, we need to discuss compensation." Sylvia started to protest, but Margaret raised a hand. "This isn't payment for kindness. This is damages. You lost wages. You were harassed. You were nearly evicted. Your daughter almost lost her career because of me, because I asked for your help. That's justice, Sylvia, the kind I used to believe in. Let me give it to you." Sylvia considered. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, "My daughter's student loans, that's all. She earned that education fair and square. She shouldn't be punished for what happened." "Done. And one more thing." "Name it." "A scholarship, in my husband's name. For children of veterans who can't afford college. Jerome would have wanted that." Margaret smiled. "The Jerome Lawson Memorial Scholarship. I'll fund it personally. It will outlast both of us." Sylvia took her hand, held it gently. "Thank you, Margaret." "Thank you." The judge's eyes were wet. "You reminded me why I became a judge in the first place. To protect people who can't protect themselves." She looked at Jerome's dog tags, still visible under Sylvia's collar. "He would have been proud of you." "I hope so. I know so." They sat together in silence. A dying judge and a cleaning lady, 2 women from opposite ends of the world, joined by something neither had expected. Kindness. The only justice that never fails. 1 month later, Sylvia stood at the same bus stop where it all began. Same route, same time. Light rain falling from a gray sky. She still cleaned houses, but only 3 days a week now, for families who treated her with respect. The other days, she volunteered at the Baltimore Veterans Center. The broken umbrella was gone. In its place, a new one, a gift from Daniel, delivered with a note, "For the next person who needs shelter." She opened it as the rain grew heavier. A young woman sat down beside her. Early 20s, mascara running, phone clutched in her hand, crying silently. That look in her eyes. Sylvia recognized it immediately. "Whatever it is, honey," she said softly, "it ain't worth dying in the rain for." The young woman looked up, startled. Sylvia sat closer, extended the umbrella to cover them both. "Now, you want to tell me about it?" The young woman stared at her, a stranger offering kindness in the rain. Then, slowly, she started to talk, and Sylvia listened, just like before, just like she always would. 6 months later, Judge Margaret Ashford Calloway passed peacefully, surrounded by family. Congressman Victor Hamill was convicted on 14 counts of fraud and bribery, currently serving 12 years in federal prison. The first Jerome Lawson Memorial Scholarship was awarded last spring. The recipient? The daughter of a soldier who died in Afghanistan. Sylvia sat in the front row at the ceremony. She was still wearing Jerome's dog tags. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And next time you see someone who looks like they need help, maybe you'll be their Sylvia.